Hello and welcome to Hit the Deck. I'm going to say scrimmage number 13. James is nodding, so we think it's 13, and if we're wrong, then you're smarter than us. So we had some backroom negotiations, James and I, and we arrived at doing a scrimmage this week, for you to, for your listening pleasure, because we don't like to leave you, our listener, high and dry, and, we like talking for some reason. For some reason, we have been led to believe it's entertaining, so you have no one to blame but yourself. And not only is today a scrimmage, not just any scrimmage, but it is a road trip scrimmage. You see, dear listener, James and I are together. We are in the car. We are on our way to opening day at Citi Field for the opening of the opener for the open.
Now you sound like
of
me.
For the opener. No, that's probably racist. So I'm gonna cut that off right there. For the opening of the Mets baseball season. So we are excited about that, but we are also excited to bring you this little glimpse into our world. We haven't done one of these in a while, James, and listener. So if you are not familiar with the road trip, what we do in these segments is James and I are in the car. We're just having a conversation, and you're along for the ride. It's like you're sitting in the back seat listening to us. You get no say. You get no say. Just sit there quietly. I will turn this car right around.
That's right.
James will turn this car right around.
Yeah, no backseat drivers.
All right, anyway, enough antagonizing our listeners.
Right. Thanks for listening.
Right, yeah, if you're still here. So this isn't something that James and I have plotted out beforehand. It's not nearly as formal and well structured, if you can believe that, as our normal episodes. So I'm just going to throw something out there for you, James,
okay.
and tell me if it sticks.
Yes, sir.
So since we're in the car, and we have, you and I and some other people in the LIQ been talking lately about the possibility of playing in tournaments which are, not local to us, let's say, traveling for tournaments. So the question that I ask you, James, is how far, I don't need an exact mileage or anything, but ballpark, about how far do you see yourself willing to travel for a tournament?
That's a great question, especially with our good friends from North Carolina and Columbus, too. And I think Columbus, speaking of not knowing about mileage and stuff like that, but roughly from where we are in New York, it's about 1,000 miles, give or take, to Columbus.
1,000 miles away. Sorry, I'll stop.
That's fine. And I didn't get the mileage to North Carolina. I think it's a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it all depends on my car, so I'll cop out that way. Where if my jalopy could make it, then 1,000 miles or so is doable. Especially when you're dealing with people that are so cool and generous, and share our passion for deck hockey and ball hockey, and have done so much to help promote our podcast too, which is so appreciated and not expected. So that would be my limit. Like we were talking a couple of podcasts ago about the youngsters that were trying out for the under 14 World Ball Hockey Tournament, that they had a long ways to go just for tryouts.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have done that, especially thinking that I'd have no chance for making the team. So I guess couple thousand. I'd say 2,000 would be the 2,000 miles would be the cutoff for me. Like if it's more than a day's travel or something, or a half day's travel.
Right. So we're not like Florida is probably a little too far for you.
Yes.
And you're not going to the desert for some kind of like West Coast Invitational.
No, sir.
But okay, all right. Unfortunately, James is the only one who can answer this question because you, the listener, you may be if you know us, but you may not be aware. But James is driving right now because, well, I say obviously. I think I mentioned it.
Yes.
I may not have. James is driving his car, not our car. I'm his co-host, not, I haven't taken possession of his car. James is driving his car on our podcast to Citi Field. I do not drive. So I've grown up my entire life in New York, where I've been able to I mean, once I outgrew my parents driving me everywhere, hither and yon, I have access to buses and subways and trains and such. So, and, my wife is able to take me to places that are less convenient for that, in the small times, the small percentage of times when that becomes necessary. But so I am unable to drive anywhere for a tournament. So I guess my answer to that question that I posed would be basically I will go however far someone is willing to take me.
Well, yeah, but you have a lot to pack, though. You're the goalie, so that's
which makes it even worse. Not only does somebody have to take me, they have to take my junk. I have 2 goalie sticks and this enormous goalie bag that takes up most of the trunk. Actually, depending on the size of the car, it might not even fit in the trunk, which means it takes up 2 of the back seats.
That's why it's always good to have a friend with an SUV or a flatbed or something.
Yes, I suppose. I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, I am definitely for the idea of traveling for a tournament, provided, of course, that I can get off work and you can make the times work.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely down to go out and about. I love playing hockey, and I love to test myself, against... I find that when we go outside of our sphere, I don't generally do very well, which is unfortunate, but I still like the opportunity to try.
Well, in the situations that we have done that, we've never really been a team. We've always been thrown together with great players and stuff like that, but when you don't gel and you don't know everybody's tendencies and things like that, it's very awkward. And our personalities, Gary's and mine, is we're not the type of people that come in and take over. We're always kind of more diplomatic and will defer. And therefore, if you're like that and you're around other people that aren't going to take the lead, it's kind of like, I got it, you take it, and then nobody does anything. And then bad things come about from there.
Speaking of playing in tournaments where we're in a mishmash of players as a team, the Rose Charities Tournament is coming up very soon, and we've spoken about the Rose Charities Tournament before on the podcast. If you were listening to us last year, this time last year, you even heard our interview with Rachel?
Yep.
It was Rachel, right?
Rachel Green, yes.
With Rachel Green, yes. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was our interview with Rachel Green, who is obviously, if you listen to that interview, with Rachel Green, who is one of the people who runs the Rose Charities Tournament. And so that is coming up again. I believe, I would have to double check because this is a little bit off the cuff, but I believe this year's tournament is April 21st.
Yes.
And that takes place in Tannehy Park in downtown Manhattan, Lower Manhattan. So if you are interested, if you're a new listener and you're not familiar with the Rose Charities Tournament, what they do is they basically raise money for children in third world countries to have facial reconstructive surgery and other, I guess, I don't want to say augmentations because that sounds like, they're being artificially improved in some way, but other ways to improve their life. They're obviously in these third world countries, life is pretty tough, and our dollars can go a long way. So the Rose Charities tournaments are, basically that's what it is. So yeah, so that's coming up.
Yeah, and it's always a lot of fun too, even though our record isn't very good, but that's the point too. If we could go as an LIQ team, I think we'd be pretty formidable, especially if we have guys like John on our team.
Yeah, true. However, unfortunately, not unfortunately from the standpoint of, it's unfortunate if you're planning on going as a team, but fortunately for the level of competition, I guess, they tend to mix and match people. So you can't go as a team and, bring an all-star team and dominate. That way you get to meet new people and you get to, just be a team. So it's good that way.
Well, yeah, and last year we had him on as well, that Brett happened to be on a team that made it all the way to the final.
Pretty.
And God bless. Gary and I had no energy whatsoever after our tournament because of the way it just went about.
Yeah. Well, all right. Sorry about that, dear listener. We actually ran into some parking issues in Flushing Meadow Park, which is where Citi Field is located. And so we had to kind of cut you off abruptly there. Well, not cut you off so much as just kind of stop talking. But I guess for your sake, that's the same thing, essentially. But anyway, now the game is over. Hopefully you will have seamlessly noticed nothing there. But for us, many hours have passed. The game is now over. The Mets have been victorious. James and I are in a good mood. James, what would you like to talk about?
I'm just grateful that my car was still there.
Yeah,
and
me too.
The Mets started this season off very well. And the weather cooperated. And kudos to your wonderful wife for getting seats that were covered.
Yep.
And
yeah, it has been a bit of a nasty day here today. Not raining that much, but it definitely did, it is raining. Or it has been raining off and on. So we were in a good spot today, both literally and metaphorically. James, when I had approached you about this whole road trip scrimmage idea,
Yep.
you had mentioned something about opening day and Easter being kind of not synonymous per se, but having much in common. So would you care to elaborate on that?
yeah, sure. For whatever little voice I have left, the beauty of Easter every year, it's always around spring and the symbolism of spring itself. And lo and behold, baseball season kicks off at the same time. So it's all about hope and redemption. And for the beauty of baseball, as Gary said, if your team wins opening day, you're in first place and you're undefeated. So there's a lot of positives. It's just nothing but good, which is very rare in this life, unfortunately, or at least in the city that we live in. So it's great to focus on the good. There's all good. And even if the team loses on opening day, there's still 161 games left, so it's not the end of the world,
It is the rebirth of a new season, and that can transcend baseball. That applies to hockey, that applies to, basketball or football or whatever. At the beginning of the season, it is almost as if your team is being reborn and you have, whole new chances. Well, not you personally, unless you're on the team. But, your team, the team that you root for, has a whole new opportunity to start playing well again, and it's, blank slate.
Absolutely.
Which, if you're on a team, you got the same thing. If you're, I would argue that even more than from a fan's perspective, if you're playing on a team, say you had, and especially in DEK hockey where the seasons can be so close together and often are very short, relatively speaking, if you had a frustrating last season, you start a new game, a new season, and you have a great game, then it can change your whole deal, as it were.
Absolutely.
You can get a fresh outlook on your season, optimism. Maybe you picked up a new player or two in the off season, and now you're looking to make a run, and it's really, yeah. So that I think we're kind of rambling here, but essentially, yes, that's the tie-in to Easter, and
now reality sets back in as New Yorkers are doing what they do best, which is cut corners and make delays. So awesome.
James was cut off in traffic, so he's a little grumpy. So please forgive him.
As I was saying, all the positives.
Yeah.
I was trying to convince myself.
I know. Is there anything we can relate to Passover, since it is also that time? I don't want to limit us to our Christian listeners, so let's see. I don't know a lot about Passover. I know there's, unleavened bread, and it originates from basically the Holy Spirit not killing a bunch of people.
Right.
Which, it's a little morbid when you think of it in those terms, but let's see. Yeah, I don't know. if you happen to be of the Hebraic faith or are just familiar with it enough to make a connection between opening day and Passover, then, shoot us an email at hitthedek@gmail.com or open up a conversation with us on our Facebook page at Hit the Deck. And, we'd love to hear your take on that. So I'm sure an argument can be made. We're just not knowledgeable enough, learned. We are not learned enough in that particular dogma to be able to make the connection.
It is integral in our faith too, because Jesus and the apostles did celebrate the Passover and Holy Week and all that stuff. So it all does interconnect in that way. Sure.
It's just not a holy day that we observe as Christians and Catholics.
Right.
Which is not to say that lessens the significance of the holy day in any way. It's just to say that we are not richly familiar with the workings and trappings of that particular day. So, that's.
Yeah, I got this Booo.
I'm putting that on you a little bit, and I apologize if you can't come up with anything either. Then
I'm trying not to get us killed here.
no harm done.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to make them right.
We won't hold it against you. That's all right, James. We'll get home somehow. I have faith.
There you go. And that's what opening day is all about.
You got to believe.
Amen.
Which is good advice for a Met fan and for a person of faith.
Yes.
So, anything else going on that we want to let the listener in on?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I can't think of anything else to be funny about or chat with James about. I would turn to you in the back seat and ask your opinion, but you're not actually in the back seat. So all that stuff I said before about being a backseat, participant in the conversation, let's be honest, it's pretty one-sided. So I would love to get your opinion on what else we can talk about, but I can't think of anything else to talk about. So rather than keep rambling and wasting your time, maybe we should just wrap this one up. What do you think, James? James is nodding. Yes? Okay. All right. So we have consensus here in the car. So I guess that's going to do it for this Hit the Deck scrimmage, and we will see all of you hopefully next week. Well, we won't see any of you probably. I might see one or two of you just in passing because I know you, but generally speaking, James and I will not see you as this is an auditory medium. So we will catch you next week. Hopefully you will catch us next week for the next episode of Hit the Deck, and in the meantime, if you celebrate, enjoy, have a blessed Passover or a blessed Easter or just a happy opening day. whatever you happen to celebrate, have a good one. All right? Until then, thanks, everybody.